Michael Cohen isn't just a liar, he's a thieving liar. And we're going to give you the details. It just broke in the Trump trial in Manhattan in the last hour, and we're going to fill you in on it. Plus, both Senators J.D. Vance and Senators Marco Rubio absolutely delivered on Sunday shows yesterday. Wonder if they're auditioning to be a running mate or something. You're going to love what they had to say and how they said it, pushing back on the mainstream media, and we'll get to that in a moment. Oh, and speaking of liars, Joe Biden is not just a liar, you already know that, but he's a liar who hates this country and is dividing us along racial lines, and he did it in a college commencement address at a historically black college. We're going to give you all those gory details as well. It's Monday, and we are loaded and ready to go. So let's go. I'm Larry O'Connor. You can call me Larry. Wait, a little trigger happy there, Kevin. I mean, I did say let's go, so it sounded like it was not bad. I mean, it's been like 7-8 months now. I think there's just one cue for the show. When I say I'm Larry O'Connor, you can call me Larry. Are you going to edit all of this out and just use one of them?
No, we're going to keep it.
Oh, good. Hey, thanks for watching. We're streaming live at Rumble right now. I'm Larry O'Connor. You can call me Larry. It has to end at some point. All right, we're done. We're streaming live at Rumble right now. Join us, please, if you're watching us after the fact, because we do have a lot of fun. We're already telling jokes about how Biden meant to say insurrectionist and said erectionist. See, that didn't make the cut of today's clips, but I still got to get it out there because I used to be an erectionist, actually, years ago. That was my job. The market went soft on that, and it wasn't good for anybody involved. I knew I wasn't going to be able to hammer home that joke. Have I got your attention? Are you standing at attention? Let's get right to it. Breaking in the Manhattan trial of Donald Trump, Michael Cohen, when last we checked on him last week, his entire testimony was falling apart in the mountain of lies that he has created for himself. The prosecution's case is reduced to nothing. And now we're coming back for more today. Not only is Michael Cohen a liar, he's also a thief. Yeah, that's right. How many commandments can one man break in his testimony against Donald Trump? Here's how MSNBC delivered the sad news.
Let me read for you the exchange between Todd Blanche and Michael Cohen. So you only gave him $20,000 and you took $30,000. Blanche, you stole from the Trump organization, right? Cohen says, yes, sir. Blanche goes on later on. He says, you did steal from the Trump organization based upon the expected reimbursement, correct? And he says, yes, sir. So again, that is breaking it out because essentially they walked through what it is that Michael Cohen actually paid Renfidge. And this goes back to, Jose, what you were just talking about, in this brown paper bag, all cash. He came to the Trump organization, an individual who worked for Renfidge, to collect this payment, $20,000, in which Michael Cohen paid out to this individual. The other $30,000 Michael Cohen kept to himself. Subsequently, why Todd Blanche is now saying, okay, so you stole from the Trump organization, correct? And Michael Cohen says, yes, correct. I believe what during this cross we're trying to get at essentially here is even during this time in which Michael Cohen contends that he was very loyal to the Trump organization, protecting the former president, protecting his boss at the time, a man he has worked with for so long, right, since 2007, who is seen more as a father figure even, that he would then subsequently steal from him because he felt as if he was not getting the appropriate bonus that he was due, that he was expected, guys. Certainly a big exchange there, I have to say, a momentous kind of exchange between Michael Cohen, Todd Blanche. Michael Cohen says, yes, I, in fact, stole from the Trump organization.
I mean, what a great character witness, right? I mean, this is it. This is their final witness, by the way. You have to understand something. All of these things that are coming out about Michael Cohen, that you know, the phone call he was supposed to have made last week was actually a call to Trump's security person because he was being pestered by a 14-year-old prank caller, which is just the most glorious thing in the world, that Michael Cohen and the entire prosecution of Donald Trump is going to come down because a 14-year-old was making prank calls. And then he decides he wants to call Secret Service on the kid. So that whole story that he had said, where, oh, I was really calling Trump about Stormy Daniels and the non-disclosure agreement. No, you were annoyed at a 14-year-old. So you got that lie breaking apart. And then today, when Michael Cohen on the witness stand in front of the jury admits that he's been stealing from Donald Trump. I mean, you know, part of the story here is that he was so loyal that he would do anything for Trump, that he would do anything Trump told him. Because it's like, hey, if this was wrong, why did you do it? Oh, because I would do anything that Trump told me to do because I'm so loyal to him. He's stealing from him. He's embezzling from him. So the whole rationale and excuse as to why he would violate the law as an officer of the court falls apart if he's actually violating his attorney-client relationship. He's already admitted that he taped him behind his back. He claims to protect him. That's a violation of attorney-client privilege as well as his client's privacy. So, but the point I'm trying to make is all of this is happening as the prosecution is making their case. All of these revelations for the jury are just happening with cross-examination, where Trump's lawyers are like, oh, okay, you've made your case with Michael Cohen. Let me just ask a few questions. We'll figure out who this Michael Cohen guy is. All of this has been revealed not as Trump is presenting his defense, just as the cross-examination of the prosecution's witnesses. Trump hasn't even started telling his story to the jury. I mean, this is a debacle. An absolute nightmare. You don't believe it? You heard the tone in our little MSNBC reporterette's voice, right? Let's really have some fun. How do you think CNN is dealing with this news? You know how.
Correct. But this is significant because they appear to have caught Cohen in another lie, and this would be a lie to the other person who is allegedly part of this conspiracy, Alan Weisselberg, who prosecutors have chosen not to call because they believe that he would not testify, that he would plead the fifth. The judge has urged them to bring him in anyway. They have not done that. So Blanche, once again, now focusing on the retainer agreement.
What this also does is it puts the onus on Michael Cohen. It was Michael Cohen who arranged this scheme, the repayment scheme. If he's the one fudging to Alan Weisselberg and lying about this and twisting that, it puts more of it on him than either Weisselberg or certainly on Donald Trump.
And so far, there is no direct link proven beyond a reasonable doubt to the defendant in this alleged conspiracy. There is a lot of evidence that has been presented. There's testimony from Michael Cohen. There's testimony from others about conversations. But that is the goal of the defense team. Mm-hmm. And this right here, this line of questioning, so far, they have established that Cohen may have lied in order to get some of this money.
But the prosecution's going to get up and talk.
Yeah, he lied to get the money and then kept extra money. And listen, stealing from your client as a lawyer, I mean, maybe that's just the way Michael Cohen or other New York lawyers do it, I suppose, when you're dealing with one of the richest men in that city. But this is even more significant because the money that he is dipping into and taking is the direct money that was part of the retainer that he then used for this Stormy Daniels payment. This is the payment that Donald Trump said that he didn't know he was paying it. Michael Cohen said, I need this kind of money for this kind of thing and the stuff that I'm doing for the legal fees. So he said, here's the money. He writes it as a legal fee. This is further evidence that Donald Trump was not intimately involved, even non-intimate and even cordially involved in the details of the money that Michael Cohen was bringing in for legal fees to handle his affairs. Right? Because Michael Cohen is literally lying about how much he needs so he can skim off the top and keep it for himself. Donald Trump can pretty validly, in making his defense to the jury, say, listen, I really didn't know what Michael Cohen was doing. He told me he needed money for legal fees. I trusted him. He's my lawyer. I paid him. Clearly, I didn't know the details of any payments to the actress for a non-disclosure agreement because he was stealing from me. If I had known the details of the agreement and the payments, then I would have known he was stealing from me. I mean, it is truly the perfect defense. And Michael Cohen just admitted to it, just gave him that defense. Donald Trump could say, of course I didn't know any of the details of the payments. Otherwise, I would have known that this guy's a thief. And you just heard the CNN reporter there say there is no evidence beyond a reasonable doubt linking the defendant. She said the defendant. Do you know who that's Donald Trump? She refused to say the words that there's no evidence linking Donald Trump to the crime. So instead she said the defendant. And by the way, if there's no evidence linking Donald Trump to this alleged crime at this point in the trial, the evidence doesn't exist because this is the end of the prosecution's case. They've already done all of their questioning of Mr. Cohen. It's over. The defense is just doing cross-examination. There may be some redirect on some points that came out during cross-examination, but if they have not made their case directly linking, even indirectly linking Donald Trump to this crime, it's over. It's over if you have an honest jury. It's over if you have an honest judge. It's over if you have an honest process. I'm not sold that we have that. This is going to play itself out. There may be even more bombshells later today, but here's the thing. It's like Michael Cohen is getting up on the witness stand today saying, hey, I know I had a rough week last week, but listen, guys, everyone's calling me a liar. Everyone's calling me a liar, and that's not fair. I'm not a liar. I'm a liar and a thief. Get it right. Let's see what happens. There may be more revelations today. There may be even more examples of perjury or other crimes that Michael Cohen is admitting to on the stand, like he did today, admitting to embezzling from his client. He certainly doesn't look like somebody that the jury should trust in any way whatsoever, especially with the stakes that this case has, and the jury is well aware of that. Everyone says that 87% of the jury voted for Joe Biden. Well, I mean, I hear you. That means 13% of them didn't. I think that means, if I'm doing the math right, 2% of the jurors. All it takes is one. All it takes is one honest man in New York or woman in New York to see this for what it is. Except for this. And I just want to give you this quick forewarning, because I don't want to be too confident. And I don't want you to get too confident on this, because everybody watching this process play out in New York, everybody watching it transpire in corporate-owned media, and yes, every single one of you watching this right now on our over-the-top streaming media that we're able to go directly to you and bypass the gatekeepers in corporate media, every single person should be expecting a conviction here. Anything short of a conviction should be a shock to everyone involved. And I want to prepare you for the next step here, because even though Michael Cohen's testimony has fallen apart, even though their star witness is a complete and total fraud, a lying, thieving fraud, all of this rests on the judge. The judge has one last, if I may, trump card here, because it is the judge who directs the jury as to how they are to reach their verdict. It is the most powerful thing a judge does in a jury trial. Ask any lawyer, they will tell you this. It's all about the jury instructions. And after the Trump team puts up their defense, then they will have hearings about the language of the jury instructions. And that's really where this case is going to be decided, if it hasn't been decided already. Meanwhile, there actually seems to be a presidential election going on. Not sure you noticed that, because we're all supposed to be hearing about a porn star in New York and the hush money trial. But yes, there is an election going on. And Donald Trump at this point is narrowing down his choices for his running mate. And actually, two of them showed up on the Sunday news shows, both of them senators, one from Florida, one from Ohio. Let's spend a little bit of time talking about that senator from Florida first. This would be Marco Rubio. He sat down with Kristen Welker at Meet the Press. There's quite a bit to look at here. We're actually going to show you the tail end of the interview first, because that's where things really got heated with Kristen Welker. But let me tell you, before we even clip into this, Donald Trump is looking for a couple of things in a running mate. He's looking for loyalty. He's looking for somebody who's right on the issues. He's looking for somebody who can articulate the policy and stand behind the policy properly and effectively. And he's looking for someone who will go to war with the media, knowing them to be the enemy that they are. You tell me if you think Marco Rubio fits the bill.
If reelected, Donald Trump has said he's willing to build migrant detention camps and deploy the U.S. military to deport the more than 11 million undocumented immigrants in this country. It would be the largest deportation operation in American history. Do you support that plan?
11 million. That's an outdated. That was the number 10 years ago. We're talking upwards of 20, 25, maybe 30 million.
Well,
There's been almost 10 million people that have entered this country unlawfully in the last 3 years.
To the question, would you support it?
The number varies big time. I mean, it's another 9 to 10 million people just in the last 3 years. The answer to your question is yes. We cannot absorb 25, 30 million people who entered this country illegally. They're here illegally. What country on earth would tolerate that? We don't even know who most of these people are. They talk about vetting them with what? They're coming from nations that don't even have document systems in many cases. Yes, we are going to have to do something. Unfortunately, we're going to have to do something dramatic to remove people from this country that are here illegally, especially people we know nothing about. But 10 million, 11 million, that was the number 15 years ago. Today, it's upwards of probably 25 to 30 million, maybe more.
Senator, here's what you said about Donald Trump's mass deportations proposals in 2016. Take a look.
I don't think it's reasonable to say you're going to round up and deport 11 million people. I don't think it's a plan that works. I don't think that's a realistic policy.
So why have you changed your mind now?
Because the issue has completely changed. When I said that, and back in 2013, when I was involved in immigration reform, we had 11, 12 million people that had been here for longer than a decade. Now we've had almost that number in the last 3 years alone from all over the world, including people that I believe are terrorists, people that I believe are going to conduct terrorist attacks in this country if given the opportunity, certainly people that were criminals in their home country. This is a completely different, this is not immigration. You asked me about immigration. This is mass migration. Mass migration. This is an invasion of the country. And it needs to be dealt with dramatically. And by the way, I'm not a big poll follower, but polls show most Americans agree with us on this.
And of course, that was an issue under former President Trump as well. There was just a bipartisan proposal that was put on the table that would put more funding into border enforcement as well as limiting asylum. Republicans walked away from that. But let me move on to my next question.
Well, no, we can't move on because that's not what that bill did. That bill also created asylum officers who right on the border will be able to give people asylum, and you give someone asylum right on the border without any appeal, no judge, nothing, just an asylum officer, they are on a path to citizenship. That's why I oppose that bill.
Your fellow Republican said it was the best deal that they had seen in a long, long time. But Senator,
which fellow Republican?
Senator Lindsey Graham.
Which fellow Republican said that?
Senator Lindsey Graham. Just to name
well, then I disagree with Lindsey if that's what he said. I'm not in favor of asylum officers at the border that can issue asylum rulings right at the border.
And Senator James Langford, of course, negotiated. But let me look forward. Will you accept the election results?
All right. So let me pause there because then she moves into accepting the election results. But you saw what happened there. That entire segment about immigration was set up as a gotcha moment. You know, the question was, do you support Donald Trump's plan to deport 11 million illegal immigrants? Now, Rubio absolutely knocked this out of the park because first, he wouldn't accept the premise of the number she was throwing out. 11 million, it's not 11 million. We're up to 20, 30 million at this point. Are you kidding me? That's an old number. But all she cared about was getting to the answer to the question as to whether he supports deportation. Because did you notice how they already had the clip package ready? Oh, well, that's not what you said before. Here's what you said before. That was a setup. The whole purpose of that was a gotcha, not to illuminate, not to get information. This is a debate. She's setting up a pre-rigged debate. And of course, they have the power of having a video package. You know, Marco Rubio can't run a video package of Kristen Welker pushing the Russian collusion hoax, right? He's a guest on the show. That would be great, though. Hey, oh, you've got a video package? You know what? I've got a video package. Do you deny that you were pushing the Russian collusion hoax? Have you ever apologized for this? Have you ever corrected the record? No, you actually got promoted, didn't you? You got to be the host of Meet the Press, Kristen, and look at all these lies you told about Russian collusion. See, this is how Republicans especially are always set up on these shows, to be the fall guys and really just to be a prop so that they can do a gotcha moment like this. And he was having none of it. He went right at it, didn't accept the premise in the first place, and then said, are you kidding me? Everything has changed after what Biden's done here. You can't compare what we said 8 years ago about immigration based on what we're dealing with right now. What is wrong with you? And then did you also notice she tries to get out of the immigration conversation by throwing a jab and then moving on? Well, you had a plan. The Republicans had a plan that would have solved the problem, best plan in years, except because of Donald Trump, it got rejected. But I want to move on to another question. Wait, you can't. What are you doing saying that? She's trying to win a debate instead of actually engage in an interview to better inform her viewers and the American public. She's trying to score a point with a talking point about that immigration bill that wasn't an immigration bill, the border security bill that wasn't a border security bill. It was an amnesty bill. And Rubio was ready for that and called her out on that too. It was great. It was really well done by Marco Rubio. So if one of the jobs that they're auditioning for here is to fight with the corporate media and liberals like Kristen Welker, so far, he's checking some boxes. All right, so now we move on. Oh, to Kristen Welker. She did this with Tim Scott. Remember when she said, will you accept the election results in 2024? Here we go.
asylum rulings right at the border?
And Senator James Langford, of course, negotiated. But let me look forward. Will you accept the election results of 2024, no matter what happens, Senator?
No matter what happens? No, if it's an unfair election, I think it's going to be contested by either side.
Senator, no matter who wins.
I think you're asking the wrong person. The Democrats are the ones that have opposed every Republican victory since 2000. Every single one. It's Hillary Clinton
Democrat has refused to concede. Hillary Clinton conceded. Senator, will you accept the election results?
Hillary Clinton said the election was stolen from her and that Trump was illegitimate. Kamala Harris agreed.
Senator,
we have Democrats now.
Senator, she conceded the election.
She said that Trump was illegitimate. She said that the election had been stolen. Kamala Harris agreed. By the way, there are Democrats serving in Congress today who in 2004 voted not to certify the Ohio electors because they said those machines have been tampered with. And you have Democrats now saying they won't certify 2024 because Trump is an insurrectionist and ineligible to hold office. So you need to ask them. I think have you ever asked the Democrat this question on your show? I bet you've never asked the Democrat that question.
Senator, you voted to certify the 2020 election, and here is what you said on that day that you voted to certify.
Notice again, she's got the pre-planned video package. Here's what you said then about certifying this election, and she goes to the video package. Amazing how this works. This isn't an interview. This entire thing is a setup. They pre-planned the entire, okay, when you ask this, then he's going to say this, and if he says that, then go to this video. This is all produced. It's all planned. And it's not meant to inform the viewers. It's meant to trap the politician. Which, listen, hey, all's fair in love and war. You're going on Meet the Press. Know that this is going to happen. But the key question that Marco Rubio kept asking is, have you ever asked a Democrat this question? Ever asked a Democrat this question? And we know the answer. We know it's okay to deny election results if you're a Democrat. In fact, it's expected. All right, so let's watch how this plays out. But you notice how Rubio, I mean, I don't know this Marco. This isn't a new Marco Rubio. He's definitely taking a different attitude here. And I do think it's because he wants to be considered as Trump's running mate.
By the 2020 election.
Yeah. Democracy is held together by people's confidence in the election and their willingness to abide by its results.
So by your own definition, are Donald Trump's claims undermining Americans' confidence in democracy, given that he has not conceded the last election, and he just said in recent days twice that he won Minnesota, Senator?
I think what undermines people's confidence in the election is when you have places like Wisconsin with over 500 illegal drop box locations, when you have places like Georgia where liberal groups are paying people $10 per vote. No, but listen, what undermines elections is when NBC News and every major news outlet in America in 2020 censored the Biden laptop story, which turned out to be true, not Russian misinformation, unprecedented. Only you couldn't even talk about it on social media. They would deplatform you. People look at all this. They look at what happened in Arizona, 200,000 ballots that had the signatures didn't match. People will lose confidence, and it opens the door to this.
I have to jump in here. Senator, you voted to certify the election. And
because at that stage in the process, you have no options.
Senator, you voted to certify the election. Nothing has been censored on this program. Hillary Clinton.
Did you guys cover the laptop for Joe Biden in 2020?
Absolutely, we covered the laptop.
It was bad. You couldn't.
They covered the laptop over a year later. She's lying. She's 100% lying. They covered the laptop a year later. And I got to say, Rubio, again, he's doing the steamroll effect. He's saying, well, this and this and this and this. She couldn't get a word in edgewise. And when she didn't respond to anything that he said. She just went back and said, you certified the election. So, you certified. So it's really good skills here. And Kristen Welker didn't know what to do with it. That's why she just keeps repeating the same thing over and over again. He's bringing the facts to the table. A little bit more here.
Even talk about it in social media.
Chris Krebs, the top election official,
you couldn't talk about it in social media. It'd be deplatformed. You couldn't even talk about it because they said it was Russian disinformation.
Senator Rubio,
voters in many cases didn't even hear about it because it was blacked out by the media.
We did cover the election, and just to note that Chris Krebs, who was a top Trump election official, called it the safest and most secure election in recent history. Senator Rubio, we are out of time.
Of course we are, but I'm telling you that if it's unfair, we are going to do the same thing Democrats do. We're going to use lawyers to go to court and point out the fact that states are not following their own election laws.
But the Democrats,
hopefully we'll have a fair election,
all of those
and it'll
cases,
be
Senator, all those cases were brought to court cases and lost, and there was no proof that there was any widespread fraud, as you know. But I appreciate.
I never used the word widespread fraud.
I'm sorry. All right, Senator Rubio, thank you very much. I appreciate your time this morning.
Yeah, that was great too. Oh, it was always proven there was no widespread fraud. And Marco Rubio said, yeah, I never said there was widespread fraud. That's not what we said. What we said was, and what we'll continue to say, is that states didn't follow their own election laws, especially in Pennsylvania. They just didn't follow their election laws. Now, a lot of those election laws have changed since then. But that is the bottom line. Listen, every Republican is going to be asked this question. Marco Rubio so far has given the answer, the best answer. But honestly, he could have been even more concise. Here's the answer. Will you accept the results of the 2024 election? And the answer is, as long as the Democrats don't cheat again. If Democrats don't cheat, we'll accept the results. But why would we accept results of an election if one side cheats? That doesn't make any sense. By the way, Marco Rubio earlier today tweeted out this video as a response. See, he didn't have his video package ready like the folks at Meet the Press did for that exchange, but then they put the video package out a little later. Watch this.
That Al Gore won that election. I think he won Hayward.
You know it, I know it, they know it. We won that election.
And the only way they could win the election was to stop the voting in Florida.
Troubling evidence of the fact that not every vote was being counted.
Legitimate concerns over the integrity of our elections.
The right to vote has been stolen from qualified voters.
You can run the best campaign. You can even become the nominee. And you can have the election stolen from you.
There is a cloud of illegitimacy around the election of Donald Trump.
If Stacey Abrams doesn't win in Georgia, they stole it.
Without voter suppression, Stacey Abrams would be the governor of Georgia.
That's powerful. That's strong. It's very, very well done. And, well, Marco Rubio is sort of bringing it right now, if I may say. A little bit more on this appearance on Meet the Press. There's a lot here, but I do know that you enjoy seeing these clips because you don't watch these shows, but you should see this stuff. They had an exchange, an important one, over the other issue that Kristen Welker really wants to carry the Democrats' water for and do all of their dirty work for them. And that's, of course, abortion, because they really want this election to be about abortion. So have at it, Kristen. Do your puppet master's job. Oh, what do you say?
Would you support a federal abortion ban?
Well, I'm pro-life. And to me, this is not even a political issue. I understand it is for a lot of people, and I understand this is a divisive issue in our country, and not everybody shares my views on it. But I believe that human life is worthy of dignity and protection, and I support laws that protect our unborn human life. I always have, as I've done in the past. You know, when people talk about a federal abortion ban, what they're talking about is the 15-week ban, which Lindsey Graham sponsored and I have co-sponsored in the past. That law is less restrictive or identical to virtually every country in Europe except for two. Now, the extremists here are the Democrats. Not once, but twice, they have voted in Congress to support a law that basically has no meaningful restrictions. They claim it does, but it has no meaningful restrictions. And I think if we are indeed in this republic, which is what we live in a divisive issue like this, where everybody's views have to be taken into account, it's very difficult to find, if there is such a thing, an arrangement at the federal level with people who basically will not vote for any meaningful restrictions on abortion.
Well, of course, the restrictions would be after 21 weeks. But let me ask it to you this way. Donald Trump
No, that's not accurate. I'm sorry, that's not what that bill did. No, I'm sorry, but that's not what that bill did. That bill, and it didn't say anything about doctors. It said practitioners. So it didn't have to be a doctor that makes this decision. It didn't say anything about a reasonable harm. It's just a good faith. And so basically, even if it's remote and unlikely, you could still say, and it's not even about, by the way, in the law that they had, it's not even about the life of the mother, it's about the health. So it could be a nurse practitioner or a nurse, or healthcare practitioner, someone needs to define that, and it can be for virtually any reason. So I understand what they claim the bill did, but in practice, that bill had no meaningful restrictions. It was, in essence, a vote, not once, but twice, from Democrats to have abortion at any time for any reason.
Let me just note, though, that less than 1% of abortions take place after 21 weeks. Let me just ask you, though, this
Then everybody should be in favor of just ban. If they're so rare, then let's just ban them all after 21 weeks.
I want to jump in because you need to say, you see this pattern of what she's doing here, right? First of all, she's repeating talking points as if they're fact of the Democrats' political positions. And then immediately she just repeats it as if she's like, well, I just want to get the facts out because what you just heard was bullshit. And so I better give you the facts. And now we'll move on to my next question. And Rubio's not having it. I mean, I said, no, well, that's not true. I know what the bill is. I'm in the Senate. You're not, Mrs. Welker. You're just reading what Planned Parenthood told you to say. And then when he disputes it and says, no, actually, it would be a nurse practitioner and it can be for the mental health. If mother wakes up in a bad mood, she can kill the baby at 8 months and nothing's stopping it. So there really is no restriction. It's the Democrats who are the ones who extreme. Ask a Democrat if they'll put any restrictions on an abortion and see what they say. And her only response is, instead of actually trying to combat that because she knows she's been caught in a lie, then she says, well, only 1% of abortions. And by the way, if it's only 1, why is that okay? But think about that talking point for a minute. It's only 1% of abortions that are done in the 3rd trimester when the baby is developed enough to live outside the womb if necessary. It's only 1%. So some years recently, I don't know what the number was last year, but we've had upwards to 500,000. I think there was one year there was 650,000 abortions. But, you know, let's go with 500,000 from last year, since I don't have the number off the top of my head. That's 5,000 babies. Oh, it's only 1%. That's 5,000 babies. That's like about how many people watch Meet the Press. That's her audience. That's only 1%. And that's, and Marco Rubio has a great answer. If that's the case, then everyone should be able to agree on this. Every single talking point they have. And let me tell you something. From my perspective, every Republican running for office, but certainly a Republican running as Trump's running mate, they need to know how to answer the abortion question well, properly, truthfully, passionately. And with the kind of passion that this issue deserves, and thoughtfully. And that's exactly what Rubio's doing here.
They're fighting so hard on that.
Well, because usually if they happen, it's because there is a crisis with the health of the mother. Let me ask you, though, Donald Trump says
no, but if there's a crisis with the life of the mother, a real crisis, that every bill has that restriction in place. Every bill has that exception.
Senator, let me ask it this way. Donald Trump says, quote, he's not signing a national abortion ban. Do you disagree with him on that point?
Well, he won't get to sign one because there's no way we can pass it. I've never claimed we have 60 votes in the Senate and votes in the House and everything else that goes in between. I don't believe any time in it, but I don't support those bills because I think they're actually about to pass. And I think what Trump has actually said is that what he wants to do is negotiate with a Democrat. I think he said it on this program, that he wants to negotiate with the Democrats on this, which I think, you know, in a country where you're trying to save unborn human life, and I support laws that do so, even if they don't have everything I want him to have in there, that's his goal. And so, but that's a statement of fact. He will never get a chance to sign that law because right now we don't have the votes to pass it. That doesn't mean that's not what I believe. It just kind of the reality of the politics.
Well, but he's not talking about whether the votes are there. He has said point blank he's not signing a national abortion ban. Let me ask you, though,
because he wants to negotiate with the Democrats on the issues. He
also said on this program that a 6-week abortion ban that was signed into law in Florida, in your state, is a, quote, terrible thing, a terrible mistake. Is he wrong on that point, Senator?
Well, again, I'm pro-life, so I support laws that save unborn human life. Other people have different opinions on what our law should be. That law that you're referring to was passed by elected legislators in the state of Florida. House members that have to go back to their voters every 2 years. It wasn't senators that have to go back every 4 years. And that's the way our republic works. So it's a representative democracy, and people have to go back to their voters and justify. I am of the belief that unborn human, I don't want to impose anything on anyone. I get that this is two competing rights here that are crashing into each other, but I err on the side of supporting unborn human life because of the dignity of all human life. That's my view. I want our laws to represent it. Other people have different views, but in our representative democracy, people who have to answer to voters in the state of Florida voted for that, and voters will now get to take that into account in this election and any future election.
Just to put a fine point on it, you are disagreeing with Donald Trump on his opposition to that 6-week ban. You support the 6-week ban?
But I think even within the pro-life movement, there's all kinds of disagreement about what the law should be.
But you
Some of it is
support the
practical on what we can pass?
You support the 6-week ban?
I support any life. I support any bill that protects unborn human life.
All right.
But I don't consider other people in the pro-life movement who have a different view to be apostate. They just have a different view about the best ways to approach this issue. We are not like the Democrats, where unless you are in favor of their bills that basically say, let's just put in all this fancy language, but it's not meaningful in terms of any restrictions, you won't get Planned Parenthood, for example, who supports all these Democrats, to get their support and NARAL support. You have to be for abortion at any time. I don't care what they say. That's the practical impact of their laws. They are radicals on this.
Damn it, that was good. I mean, really, really good. Again, not just pointing out the ghoulish, despicable position that Democrats have and must have if they're a member in good standing with the party, but by responding in the way he did at the end there, he made it glaringly obvious that Kristen Welker would never, ever ask Democrats the same line of questioning here. Ever. And the reason is because you're not allowed to be a Democrat unless you all agree on the same thing, which at this point is in fact allowing the killing of a baby in the womb right up till the day of birth. And so it's pretty beautiful how you never have to get caught with hypocrisy or in any way have two Democrats that have differing positions and say, oh, so you think they're wrong about that? Just say it on the record. She had her pen out. So just to be clear, just to have a fine point on it, you support the law that Donald Trump doesn't support, right? Right? That's it. See, that moment never happens with Democrats because you're not allowed to be a Democrat unless you all agree on the same thing. Kill the baby, whatever reason, right up till birth. I mean, I guess the big difference is some of the Democrats, they're okay with the killing of the baby after birth. Over on CBS, they have their own Sunday morning show. It's called Face the Nation. In fact, they've got really good ratings on Face the Nation all the time. Face the Nation used to be the lowest rated Sunday show all the time. You had Tim Russert doing Meet the Press on NBC. And then you had This Week with David Brinkley, right? With Sam Donaldson over on ABC. Then those two people, well, Tim Russert died. David Brinkley retired. They gave This Week with David Brinkley to George Stephanopoulos, a left-wing Democrat partisan hack. And they're on their third host for Meet the Press. Fourth host, actually, because Tom Brokaw was in there temporarily for a while. They're on their fourth host on Meet the Press, and they're tanking. You know, Kristen Welker, Chuck Todd, you guys did a great job destroying the Rolls Royce of Sunday shows. And so now with George Snuffleupagus, the Clinton apparatchik over on ABC, ruining This Week, and Kristen Welker, Chuck Todd, and everyone over at NBC ruining Meet the Press, Face the Nation suddenly gets prominence. And Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio appeared. And this is a nice, lengthy clip here to show what J.D. Vance, he's a freshman senator out of Ohio, but he's really, really finding a lane for articulating Donald Trump's America First policies and dealing with, as usual, hostile questioning from the media.
Because look, Margaret, we have to reelect Donald Trump as president. The contrast is so extraordinary between higher inflation at home and war overseas. That's the Biden record, and the Trump record of peace at home and prosperity. That is an incredible thing to run on. And importantly, it's an incredible thing to deliver for our country. So I think we need to help Donald Trump get across the finish line. That's why I've spent a fair amount of time with him the past couple of weeks, helping him raise some resources, showing up in support in New York. But it's all about getting him elected president. I actually don't care that much who the vice president is because Trump's ultimately going to govern.
Well, you call yourself one of the most pro-labor Republicans in Congress. Sure. You were out there with automakers who were striking a few months back, and you've been very broadly supportive of tariffs. Why are you opposed to President Biden then putting tariffs on batteries and electric vehicles and other technology from China? It seems inconsistent.
Well, I think there are two things here. First of all, many of the tariffs that Joe Biden has endorsed in the last couple of weeks are tariffs that he ran against in 2020. But now that he sees that Donald Trump is leading him in the polls, he's adopting the Donald Trump agenda. That's not actually being a good policy president. That's shifting on politics because you know you're about to lose.
Well, he's targeted these pretty directly.
There's a second thing, Margaret, that's really important here is Biden's entire agenda, such that it exists, has been about protecting green energy jobs at the expense of the industrial heartland. If you were in Wisconsin, Michigan, or Pennsylvania, you are not being empowered or enriched by Joe Biden's green energy agenda. So him applying tariffs on the green agenda stuff, does it help steelmakers? Does it help natural gas gas workers? Does it help the heart of the American economy? The answer is no, which is another reason why Donald Trump would make a much better president.
You know, it's what Chinese electric vehicles are like less than 2% of the market. But the point here is
but it's a lot of
all
supply.
tariffs, though, but to your point, all tariffs, which you seem to be in favor of, they're inflationary. So how is the Trump-Vance idea here going to help make things more affordable for people if you're putting taxes on goods they're purchasing from overseas?
I don't necessarily buy the premise there, Margaret. If you apply tariffs, really what it is you're saying that we're going to penalize you for using slave labor in China and importing that stuff in the United States. What you end up doing is you end up making more stuff in America, in Pennsylvania, in Ohio, and in Michigan.
That did not
and
happen in the Trump administration, though.
Well, it actually did happen in the Trump administration, Margaret.
Manufacturing jobs came back.
You did have significant onshoring. You had significant increases in people investing in factory construction, but it takes time, Margaret. And that's one of the reasons why I think that we need a second term of President Trump is this stuff is not going to happen overnight. The American heartland wasn't destroyed in 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be rebuilt in 4 years, but you really need to double down on this policy of bringing good jobs back to the heartland. And more importantly, making stuff in America. We have to be self-reliant as a country.
We haven't heard a lot of specifics. I mean, there's been ranges of a 10% to 60% tariffs. Do you know what the plan is?
Well, look, I'm not going to speak for Donald Trump, but I certainly agree that we need to apply some broad-based tariffs, especially on goods coming in from China, and not just solar panels and EV stuff. We need to protect American industries from all of the competition. Because here's the thing, Margaret, the reason China beats us, it's not because they have better workers. It's because they're willing to use slaves to make things there. We want American workers to make this stuff at good wages.
I want to pause here just for a minute because, listen, even amongst Republicans, there are a lot of debates over whether tariffs are a good thing or not. If you talk to some of the purist free marketeers and free traders out of that school, they're going to blanch at a lot of this stuff, right? Because they're taking the idea that if you add tariffs, it does end up making things cost more. Yet at the same time, I think it's important to understand what J.D. Vance is saying is the cheap cost of items that are being made in China are artificially cheap and artificially reduced in cost because it's not an even playing field. You know, oh, it costs so much more to make it here in America. Yeah, because we don't have slave labor. That's why. And ultimately, the pressure needs to be put on companies like Apple and other companies that manufacture all of their electronics there to say, you know, at what point do you actually look yourself in the mirror and know that you're basically engaging in slave labor, directly or indirectly? I mean, that's really the policy. And we as the American people need to reconcile that. We need to reconcile it with the fact that our cell phones are going to cost more, that our electronics are going to cost more. But the trade-off is, number one, we're not morally bankrupt and engaged in slave labor conditions and basically one person removed from enslaving those people and putting them in the horrific conditions that they're in. Oh, and by the way, number two, we're not enriching an enemy, enriching a country on this planet who wants to destroy us. Why are we doing that? And we need to have a frank conversation about that. But again, whether tariffs are the right way to go, or maybe giving incentives for companies to no longer manufacture there, or actually just saying it's illegal to manufacture in any country that engages in slave labor. I mean, we should be able to do that, shouldn't we? Regardless of the way you go about doing it, eventually the American people and the Western civilizations have to wean their economy off of the horrific conditions in China right now because it is artificial. It's wrong. Everything's cheaper. Oh, yeah, everything's cheaper because of exploitation. And that's wrong. All right. But again, like I said, set all of that aside because the Milton Friedman devotees in the world right now are going to go crazy at the idea of tariffs. No tariffs. Free trade everywhere. Fine. Okay. Free trade everywhere. What's more important here is this man's ability to calmly, rationally, and coherently communicate these ideas. The ideas that are often assumed to be a little above the heads of the American people because it's macroeconomics and trade policies and how it affects labor and inflation and all that stuff. And J.D. Vance is really good at this stuff. He's really good at talking like a normal person. So it's important to see him handling this as he basically is in the audition role right now as Trump's running mate. But secondly, and frankly, the way my eyes and ears find these segments, is to watch how he is being questioned. Watch how she's probably, Maureen Brennan here, is probably the best of all of the Sunday shows. She's not as hostile and disgusting and combative, but she's bad. And again, I ask you, as you watch this back and forth develop, when have you ever seen an anchor or reporter on network television asking questions like this with follow-ups and with the parroting of talking points that have been handed to them by a political party? When have you ever seen them doing this to a Democrat? Ever. And she's doing exactly the same thing that we're seeing in all of these other clips today. She's basically, and she's just throwing it out there as if it's fact. Well, the Biden administration will say da-da-da-da-da. Now let's move on to the next. Wait a minute. What do you mean the Biden administration? You're speaking for the Biden administration? These tariffs that they just put out there. See, we've got tariffs too. We're angry at China. No, they're all specifically to the electric vehicle industry and the Green New Deal crap that Biden put into his big spending bill that caused all this inflation. So sure, he's protecting industries. Which industries is he protecting? The industries that the people don't care about anyway. Or we're going to put tariffs on China's electric vehicles. Well, American people don't want to buy America's electric vehicles, let alone China's. This is all fake. It's all boosting up an industry that the American people don't even want. Because he wants to be able to show that there's growth in that sector because of his Green New Deal bill. Because right now there isn't. They spent billions of dollars and everything's sitting there collecting dust. People aren't getting their electric chargers done. They're not getting their tax rebate for solar panels and new windows. They're not getting their rebates for electric cars. And Ford has now stopped manufacturing their electric trucks because it was such a debacle. And so now the only thing that he can do is artificially, again, all these artificial machinations on the economy to reward one sector and harm another sector. You know, you really want to do something to encourage American industry and manufacturing. Don't just focus on electric vehicles, because American manufacturers aren't looking to make electric vehicles right now, except Tesla. They're the ones who figure it out to make it right. All right, back to Vance.
I want to ask you about some of the things you said about American universities. I know you've been very critical of them. You gave an interview in February. You said the closest conservatives have ever gotten to successfully dealing with the left-wing domination of universities is Viktor Orban's approach in Hungary. I think his way has to be the model for us, not to eliminate universities, but to give the choice between survival or taking a much less biased approach to teaching. He seized control of state universities and put them in foundations that were then run by his allies. Is that what you're advocating be done in the United States?
Well, Margaret, what you're seeing in the United States actually is that universities are controlled by left-wing foundations. They're not controlled by the American taxpayer, and yet the American taxpayer is sending hundreds of billions of dollars to these universities every single year.
I don't want taxpayers controlling education necessarily. Is that what you're advocating for, federal government?
Margaret, what I'm advocating...
Did you hear that? I don't want taxpayers controlling education. Well, who do you want controlling education? Since we're paying for it, why shouldn't taxpayers control education? At every level. Listen, you want to have a private university with your own money and your own endowments and your own income from whatever donations you get and tuition, go at it. But as soon as you ask me to pay for some of it, of course I should have a say. And by the way, who cares what you want? You're supposed to be asking questions here as a journalist. But notice how they all slip into this mode of debating the issue. Which, listen, I'm a radio talk show host. If I get a person on my show who I disagree with, I might engage in a debate with them. But that's because I let everyone in the world know that I am an opinion journalist. I bring you information and news and facts, but I also express my opinion and I advocate for my opinion. These people, they're constantly telling us, are the real journalists. They don't have a dog in the fight. We don't have a bias. We're just here for the news and information. Do you see what she's doing? I don't want the taxpayers to be controlling education. Well, who the is what you want? Seriously. That was a revealing comment. Let's watch it again.
not controlled by the American taxpayer, and yet the American taxpayer is sending hundreds of billions of dollars to these universities every single year.
I don't want taxpayers controlling education necessarily. Is that what you're advocating for? Federal government?
Margaret, what I'm advocating for is for taxpayers to have a say in how their money is spent. Universities are part of a social contract in this country. They educate our children. They produce important intellectual property. They get a lot of money because of it. But if they're not educating our children well and they're layering the next generation down in mountains of student debt, then they're not meeting their end of the bargain. I think it's totally reasonable to say there needs to be a political solution to that problem.
Well, America's universities still attract talent from around the world, as you've went to one of America's very top schools.
Look, there's still good things about American universities, but it's going in the wrong direction, Margaret.
But Viktor Orban in particular, as you know, I mean, he rewrote the Constitution, he neutered the courts, he has tried to control the media. These are not necessarily conservative principles. So why would you want to mimic him?
Well, look, I'm not endorsing every single thing that Viktor Orban has ever done. I don't know everything he's ever done. What I do think is on the university principle, the idea that taxpayers should have some influence in how their money is spent at these universities, it's a totally reasonable thing. And I do think that he's made some smart decisions there that we could learn from the United States.
Well, he was just welcomed at Mar-a-Lago. And as you know, Leader McConnell just spoke out on the floor of the Senate this past week after Xi Jinping visited Hungary. He's trying to broker trade deals. They're brokering trade deals, not just with Russia, but with Iran. Orban, because of this, McConnell said it should be a red flag for anyone seriously concerned about competition with China. So why take any policy cues from a man and a country and a strategy cozying up to America's adversaries?
Well, look, Margaret, Hungary is a nation of 10 million people. America is a nation of 330 million people in the most important economy in the world. I don't think that we should take every cue, but I actually have to reject the premise here, because why is Viktor Orban getting closer to China? In part because American leadership is not making smart decisions. We are pushing other nations into the arms of the Chinese because we don't make enough stuff, because we pursue a ridiculous foreign policy very often. We have to be more self-reliant. I don't like China. I don't like that China has stolen a lot of American jobs. The reason they've done it is because American leadership has made bad decisions. That's our fault, and that's something we can fix as Americans.
Yeah. So, and this goes on because she and other, you get used to this. You know, they're trying to make a totalitarian, authoritarian tin pot dictator out of Viktor Orban. And if there are any, and by the way, Viktor Orban has a lot of good conservative principles over there in Hungary, and he's also very much, got a Hungary first kind of foreign policy, and wants to protect his borders and control immigration. They hate him. Listen, and again, I don't know everything that Viktor Orban's like. J.D. Vance, I'm about the same. He's got see some good things out of Hungary, but also there's probably some things that I don't like either. Because guess what? I'm not Hungarian. He's not making decisions for me. He's making decisions for Hungarians. Here's the only thing that I want to point out. Joe Biden waxes poetic about his relationship with Xi Jinping. He talks about how they went on mountain hikes together, and he's the world leader that he's had the most conversations with and spent the most time with, and really praises Xi Jinping for what a strong leader he is in terms of helping the economy and the people of China. He's always got this praise for Xi Jinping. Has any reporter or journalist ever said, why do you have these nice things to say about China? Why are you even dealing with China? Why are we even attempting to have a good relationship with China? China kills their own people. China enslaves their own people. The people in China have no freedom. And, oh, by the way, China did gain-of-function research on a coronavirus that then was leaked out into the public, killing hundreds of thousands of Americans and millions of people worldwide, and they still lie about it. Why do you spend any moment saying anything about China that isn't 100% condemnation of that evil regime? But no. The real problem, everybody, is Hungary. The real problem is Viktor Orban and Hungary. This is how small and unimpressive the American media is when they're talking about politics. But again, the most important part of what you just saw is J.D. Vance is on the short list for vice president. J.D. Vance is very good at what he does. He's a freshman in the Senate in his very first year in the U.S. Senate. He's very popular. He's good at fundraising, and he's going to be very good on the campaign trail, whether he is a running mate for Donald Trump or not. And therefore, he must be trapped. He must be debated, he must be defeated, and he must be destroyed. Because that's how the media does their business when they've got a Republican sitting across from them. Joe Biden's got some real problems for re-election coming up this November if he doesn't nail down a couple of key voting blocks that Democrats always can count on. In fact, some could argue they always take for granted. And one of them that they're very concerned about, Black men. African-American male voters right now are leaving Joe Biden in droves. They're saying that they're either not going to support him or they're just saying, yeah, I'm going to vote for Trump because, well, things were better under Trump. Biden does nothing. In fact, Biden has made things worse. So he has to shore up that support. He decided to go to Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia, to give the commencement address and address Black voters in that august, historically Black college. And well, the way he addressed them was basically to pander to them, lie to them, and divide our country along racial lines because, well, he's Joe Biden. That's just what he does. First, a quick clip to show you how clueless and out of it he is. In fact, take a look at his face there. I mean, he has no idea where he is and what he's doing there. Why am I wearing this thing? Am I singing in the choir? What is this? Where am I? Who is that man with the presidential seal at the podium? Oh, it's my good buddy Barack. Barack, why are you dressed like that? Here's Joe Biden being very confused at the Morehouse College commencement address, and he hears the speaker call for an immediate ceasefire, a permanent ceasefire in Israel, and Joe Biden applauds.
It is my stance as a Morehouse man, nay, as a human being, to call for an immediate and a permanent ceasefire in the Gaza Strip.
Now, that would be Joe Biden, the president of the United States, the commander-in-chief of the American military, and the leader of the free world, applauding a policy that is not anything near the American policy. His American policy. His policy is not to call for an immediate and permanent ceasefire in Israel. The last thing that the Joe Biden administration would demand is a permanent ceasefire. Why would you have a permanent ceasefire in the middle of a war? Of course, that is not our position, but there he is applauding it. Why? Well, if you watch it with the sound down, you can tell that he, in fact, is not paying attention. Look at his face. He has no idea where he is. He has no idea what he's doing. He actually starts to nod off there for a moment. He may be pooping his pants for all we know. He's done it before. And then all of a sudden, everybody applauds. So he realizes, oh, people are clapping. I guess I got to clap too. That's your president applauding a policy that is actually contrary to his own policy. Then came the pandering. Oh, and the best pandering that he does is when he panders and lies at the same time. Here he is talking about how many Morehouse men are in the White House.
I got more Morehouse men in the White House telling me what to do than I know what to do. You all think I'm kidding, don't you? You know I'm not. And it's the best thing that's happened to me.
Yeah, y'all think I'm kidding. No, we don't think you're kidding. We just think you're a dirty liar. Because, in fact, there are no Morehouse men in the White House. There are no graduates of any kind in the White House telling Joe Biden what to do. In fact, the last graduate of Morehouse College, the closest he got was to be the communications director for Kamala Harris, whose office, the communications director at least, their office is not in the White House. And the communications director for the vice president certainly does not tell the president what to do. That was one of many communications directors for Kamala Harris, by the way. His name was Jamal Simmons. He left like all the other communications directors for Kamala Harris because, well, if you were a communications director for Kamala Harris, well, you'd leave too. So while he was lying and while he was pandering to the graduates at Morehouse, some of them literally turned their back on him.
All hope was lost. In our lives, in the lives of the nation, we have those Saturdays to bear witness the day before glory.
Yep, that man got up when the speech began, turned his chair around, and specifically looked the other way and gave his back to the president. Some people actually got up and walked out of the speech. The problem is it was for all the wrong reasons, for all the reasons why people should protest this president and turn your back on him and not listen to a word he says as he lies, divides, and panders to this black audience for solely political purposes. They picked the wrong reason, the policy in Israel, because, well, they're pro-terrorist, sadly. But it was definitely a tepid response from the crowd there. Every time he said a line that was going to be a big applause line, for the most part, it was a smattering at best. He got a couple of lines in there. Here he is speaking to the Morehouse College graduates about how he circumvented the Constitution. He brags about it, in fact, as long as it's for paying back people's student loans. What Constitution? Supreme Court said no, I'm going to do it anyway. You go, Joe. That's great. Who needs a constitution and separation of power?
And the Supreme Court told me I couldn't. I found 2 other ways to do it.
How is this something that he should brag about? And by the way, where's all the media about the constitutional crisis? Remember when Donald Trump was trying to figure out a way through executive action to pay for the building of the wall? It's a constitutional crisis, day 312. America held hostage. We have a constitutional crisis. Donald Trump is trying to take defense spending and use it to defend the country. Remember? He asked for funding for the wall. Nancy Pelosi said, hell no. So he went ahead and found money in the defense budget and said, well, let's use this for the wall because, building a border wall is kind of the nation's defense. And that was a constitutional crisis. Here we have a Supreme Court decision. It made it all the way to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court said, no, you cannot unilaterally refund student loan debt. Even Nancy Pelosi had said that he can't unilaterally refund student loan debt and forgive student loan debt. And now he's bragging about the fact that he figured out 2 ways to do it around the Supreme Court's decision. And we're supposed to applaud this. Well, because lawlessness and unconstitutional activity is actually a virtue if you're a Democrat. But it's an impeachable offense if you're a Republican. Those are the rules. I didn't make them up. I just comment on them.
Today in Georgia, they won't allow water to be available to you while you wait in line to vote in an election. What in the hell is that all about? I'm serious.
Oh, the I'm serious, I'm not joking thing is always the tell. When Joe Biden stops and looks at the audience, goes off script and says, I'm serious, he's lying. I'd love to play poker with this guy. I want to raise you $300. I'm sitting on a full house. I'm serious. Oh, all in. Show me your cards, buddy. What he just said is a flat out lie. It's a flat out lie that they've been saying for years, and it's been thoroughly debunked. There are no laws keeping people from getting water while they're waiting in line to vote. What you can't do when people are waiting in line is to deliver anything to them on behalf of a political organization, because that would be politicking. Here's a bottle of water for you, compliments of the Democratic Party of Georgia. Don't forget to vote. That you can't do. And by the way, how insulting. These are college graduates from Morehouse College. They've just gotten their degree. And he thinks so little of them that he thinks they're going to buy that crap, that they don't know the truth, something that has been thoroughly debunked. He thinks they will believe his lie because he is, in fact, racist. They won't know any better. As long as I make them angry about white men, they'll applaud me. And one other thing. I just got to say, this whole thing, you can't bring up, no one can bring you a bottle of water while you're waiting in line to vote in Georgia. It's outrageous. It's not true. We just had an election there. There were no, in fact, there was higher black turnout in the last election after the voter integrity laws got passed than there was before the voter integrity laws got passed. And nobody died of dehydration, because here's the thing. Every single one of those graduates from Morehouse, those black voters that he's trying to piss off and turn on white Republicans, Every single one of them, while they're sitting there, probably has their own Yeti or Stanley full of water. Every single person of that generation doesn't go anywhere without a bottle of water of some kind. This is the most hydrated generation in world history. They can't ever bring you a bottle of water. It's like, yeah, that's okay, dude. I got a jug here. I take it everywhere I go. And by the way, I got a better idea. Why don't you do so? You know who runs the voting in Atlanta? You know who, all these lines in Fulton County. Who's in charge of voting in Fulton County? Democrats. Yeah, I have a better idea, guys. Why don't you get rid of the lines? Why don't you why don't you add more polling places? Why don't you get more people to work at the polls? Instead, you've got people lined up around the block because you have no infrastructure. You haven't actually cared about the voting process. Of course, that goes all the way back to the Democrats' Jim Crow days. And now he's insulting these students by lying to them. But it's not just a lie. It's a lie specifically designed to further inflame racial tensions. And this next clip you're about to see is so despicable and so disgusting and so hateful of America. Look at his face. Look at that face. I want you to listen to what this man is about to say while recognizing that he is the president of the United States. He is the leader of this country. And listen, watch what little regard he has for the nation he is supposed to lead. Listen to the contempt he holds for this country.
It's natural to wonder if democracy you hear about actually works for you. What is democracy? If black men are being killed in the street, what is democracy? The trail of broken promises still leave black communities behind. What is democracy? You have to be 10 times better than anyone else to get a fair shot. Most of all, what does it mean, as we've heard before, to be a black man who loves his country, even if it doesn't love him back in equal measure?
There was your smattering of 4 people applauding Dr. Jill, Karine Jean-Pierre, and their dates. What a despicable, hateful man. That anyone who would deliver those remarks and say that about this country has no regard for this country. Joe Biden hates America. And this is all meant to gather support among these black voters. This is his strategy. Oh, we're losing support amongst black voters, so let's go out and tell them how racist the country is. And this is a commencement address. Can you imagine being the parent of a child who is just getting their college degree, and you're hoping to hear a speech of uplifting advice and inspiring words that send you off into your life now as a college graduate, ready to seize the world and make a difference and build a family and build a career and do something meaningful and important. And instead you get this guy saying, you guys don't have a chance. I mean, you're all black. I mean, if they don't kill you, they're going to trample all over you in the professional world because this country hates you. It is one of the most despicable things I've ever heard. And that's saying something from this man. But this has been his entire career. Think about this for a minute, because he just said decades of broken promises. And who made those promises, Joe Biden? If you are to believe Joe Biden about the racist state of the United States of America circa 2024, as he just described, isn't it fair for us to ask, Joe, what have you done about it? You have been a United States Senator, the Vice President, and now the President for 52 years. You started your public life in 1972. And after 52 years, this is the state of affairs? Can we not hold you responsible for that? What have you done to improve things? This man, at every point in his career, if given the opportunity, has divided this country along racial lines. That's what he learned in the 70s as a Democrat. And it's what he's continued to do, from his treatment to Clarence Thomas to when, as vice president, claiming in front of a black audience that Mitt Romney was going to put you all back in chains. The lie about Charlottesville that he claims was the reason why he decided to run in 2020. And now this? This is despicable. And again, I want to reiterate, insulting to the young men and women, 22, 23 years old, in that audience who really do know better. And that's why you hear hardly any of them applauding. Then he turns to the so-called book ban. I love it when Democrats talk about a book ban. A book ban, they're banning books, you know, they're banning books. When you hear about the book ban, what do you think of? You think about the gay porn, right? I mean, the books that conservatives mostly, but also Democrats as well, when they actually see what's in the books, the books in question that are at the center of the so-called fake book ban controversy, where parents are trying to use their judgment and discern whether it is age appropriate to have explicit gay pornography in the hands of children. That's what the left calls a book ban. But all the books involve the same kind of content. It's all, you know, gay porn. So the speech makers are putting together the speech in front of Morehouse College, and I'm sure somebody said, hey, maybe we should say something about the book ban too. And then one of the people says, oh, yeah, I love the book ban thing. It makes Trump and the conservatives look like Nazis. That's wonderful. You're right. We should throw it in there. But here's the problem. That's about gay porn. It doesn't have anything to do with race. And the other speechwriter said, screw it. It doesn't matter. Just say that it's about race. Go ahead. Talk about the book ban, but say that it's about race. Let's see if that works. So that's what they did.
I never thought when I was graduating in 1968, as your Honor Reed just was, we talked about, I never thought I'd be in a president at a time when there's a national effort to ban books, not to write history, but to erase history. They don't see you in the future of America, but they're wrong. To me, we make history, not erase it.
Joe Biden is an angry, bitter man who shouted vitriol at these college graduates at Morehouse, thinking that this is the way to get black votes. And listen, he may be right. I will never underestimate a white Democrat's ability to divide America along racial lines for political gain. They have a very, very long history of doing this very effectively. But I want to hope and I want to pray that we've moved past this kind of crap, that we've moved past these lies, this division. What a unifier he is. Oh, and then finally, as he was finished with his speech, he's yucking it up with the administration there at Morehouse. And take a look. He doesn't want to leave the stage, he claims, right?
I'm not going home.
There you go. Oh, by the way, did you notice no one's standing in the audience. He's done with his speech. Look at how everyone's still in their seats. They gave him his little thing. They're doing the whole presentation. He goes back to the podium. He says he's not going home. He's not going home. He loves it there so much. Actually, the next thing you know, he did go home. He actually went home while the ceremony was still going on. While someone was performing and inspiring the students instead of shouting racial lies at them, he got up and made a big show. He left the stage.
And I ain't got weary yet. I ain't got weary yet. I ain't got weary yet.
That performance actually sounds a lot better and more interesting than anything Joe Biden did. I mean, I would have stayed for that. How insulting and how rude. And what a jerk. While this beautiful performance is going on with that incredible voice, to just get up and say, I'm done. I did what I needed. I got what I wanted. So I'm out of here. He's an awful human being. Absolutely awful. And by the way, if you want any further proof about what a despicable, divisive, racist performance this was down at Morehouse, well, let's ask an expert on such matters.
How do you think the president did at Morehouse?
I thought it was a very good speech. I thought that he really made some very key points, including his outright call for an immediate ceasefire. But I also think where he listed things like the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, the Voting Rights Act, specific things about how black unemployment is down in terms of record unemployment. So it was a substantive speech, and it was inspirational. And it was at a place that many of us see as sacred ground. Martin Luther King Jr. came from Morehouse among many others, and I thought it was the place to do it. I thought the students protested. It was a small amount, but they did it with the dignity that did not scar the school, but at the same time respected the graduation. So I thought it was a win-win for both the students and for the president.
How do you think?
Well, there you go. It's got the Al Sharpton seal of approval. So you know that it was hateful and racist and divisive and incoherent and moronic, because that's the Al Sharpton brand. Like I said, it may work, but it sure feels like when this kind of divisive racist rhetoric is delivered and the likes of Al Sharpton approves of it, it seems like they're running a race in 1992, not 2024. I'd like to hope that not just the American people, but Black Americans, after what they've been through for the last 8-10 years, that they know better. I actually respect their intelligence more than Joe Biden and Al Sharpton does, because there's one part of Al Sharpton's analysis that's really revealing. When he says, I'm glad President Biden was frank and really talked about the issues like how Black unemployment is down right now. Funny, 4 years ago, Black unemployment was the lowest it's ever been since we've been keeping track of unemployment along racial lines. That's like 50 years. Under President Trump, Black unemployment had reached its lowest level ever. And now under Joe Biden, as Al Sharpton just pointed out, Black unemployment is in a really bad place. I mean, what's different? Oh, yeah. Joe Biden. So he's getting praise for going up and acknowledging the unemployment crisis among Black Americans that he single-handedly created. I mean, I guess it's good when you're a Democrat and you can get praise for actually creating the chaos that you're now at least honest enough in front of that audience to acknowledge. That's it for today. Thank you for watching. We'll be back next time, same place. And in the meantime, I'm Larry O'Connor. You can call me Larry.